So our presenters, Corliss, the author of our report and the lead facilitator for our online course, is the research and evaluation specialist here at YouthREX. She's also a doctoral student, like minutes away from defending at the University of Ottawa. Her focus is on positive youth development and specifically the development, implementation, and evaluation of youth programs, and she specializes in the sport and physical activity context. She's conducted a lot of evaluations and worked on with national sports organizations in the development of programs and curriculum, so she's an incredible resource. Bridgette Estrela is the Director of Partnerships and Programming at the newly launched, just last week, MLSE LaunchPad. She's a community investment strategist and leader in the not-for-profit sector. She's devoted over 9 years to positive youth development by supporting the investment of resources in a variety of programs. She works now for the MLSE, that's the Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment Foundation, where she's been working on the revitalization of sport and recreation facilities and the development of youth-focused sport programs across the city of Toronto in conjunction with a whole range of partners. Meaghan Marton is a facilitator for Motivate Canada. She's a graduate from the University of Windsor Psychology and Women's Studies program, and she's been involved in Motivate Canada since 2014, so almost 3 years. She was selected as the participant in the Female Physical Literacy Program and the Activate National Forum as well, and she'll be talking about those experiences. She's also developed her own project, a youth boxing program that runs in Windsor, Ontario at the Border City Boxing Club. She's taught and coached over 50 youth. And you'll learn more about her when it's her presentation. And then Gabriela Estrada is also a facilitator for Motivate Canada, and she's the program director of Keep On Moving TO. She's the graduate of the University of Toronto Scarborough with a BA in anthropology and double majors in linguistics and English. So far beyond sport, but active in sport. She's currently as a full-time athletics and recreation program assistant at the University of Toronto Scarborough campus. And she's also the lead of her own project, which you'll hear more about as well. So before we get going with our feature presentations, I'd like to just ask our participants where you are coming from. What is the area that you're working on? So I'm going to launch a poll, and I'd like to invite you to respond. So we're wondering if you work for a sports-only program, a non-competitive sports program, or you work for a physical activity program that's not sport, that's like dance, yoga, climbing, or if it's youth-led, like the Motivate model, or if you do general youth development programming, youth leadership development, or other. Wow, this is interesting because so far we have no one who's coming only from a sports-only or physical activity program, and a lot of general youth development programs, and a lot of other. I wish there was a way in this poll to be able to see what those others are. Perhaps you can bring that up when you frame your questions for us. So I'm going to close the poll now, if my mouse will work, and just share the results with you. So you can see that the majority of participants are coming from general youth development programs, and I wonder then if you have sports or physical activity components in your program, and then the other majority is an other group, and then some are youth-led sport and activity programs. So I'll just close that, and then I will pass it over to Corliss. So Corliss, over to you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So first off, I just wanted to welcome any course participants that are on the webinar today. It's great. The course is going really well so far, and yeah, this is our first webinar that's been offered for course participants. So welcome to all those that have joined. I also wanted to quickly give a thank you to Sarah Kramers, who is the person that I've been able to work with over the past couple months on this report. and it's been a great opportunity. And yeah, I think we worked really well together and have come up with a very applied product that hopefully you guys will find useful and be able to put into practice for your youth work at whatever capacity that is. So I just want to spend about the next 5 or 6 minutes going over what quick summary of the report, just framing it. Basically, what we want to know, what we've the framework that we've adopted within sport is this framework of positive youth development. And we've seen this framework as something that has seen youth as resources to be developed instead of problems to be managed in society. And it takes on this proactive approach that aims for holistic development of youth. And one of the big pieces of this positive youth development is to provide them with skills and assets that they need, that youth need in order to successfully transition and be productive, contributing members of society into adulthood. So one of those key components of positive youth development is life skill development. So life skills are those psychological skills, assets, values that allow youth to deal effectively with everyday life. And a lot of these life skills can be things that we often take for granted, so like teamwork, particularly within a sport context, communication, emotional regulation, time management, all those sorts of things would be considered life skills. And a big component of this definition of life skill is that whatever is learned in that context, youth are able to transfer those skills to other contexts. So if we're learning the skill in sport, they're able to transfer those skills to other contexts, such as their home life, their school life, at work, with their friends, etc. So what do we know about sport? We know that sport is considered to be a favorable context to foster positive youth development. First off, we know that it's the most popular extracurricular activity for youth across Canada. Because of that, youth are motivated or tend to be motivated to engage in sport and physical activity contexts. And we know that there's the dual benefit. So not only are youth able to potentially develop those psychosocial skills, those life skills, but they also have the opportunity to develop physical skills as well. So there's that physical benefit. What we kind of need to wrap our head around is that there are some youth that are considered to be more at risk for physical inactivity. So particularly females, youth that are between the ages of 20 and 24, and individuals that are non-white. So I think an important piece to touch on here is that some of our programs that we talk about a little bit later on in this webinar aim to target female youth. And I think this is a really big barrier in terms of physical activity. So trying to provide opportunities for female youth that might be female-only programs. Again, that's something that we'll touch on, and I think it's very important. What's important also to wrap our head around is the fact that youth sport and positive youth development, they do align quite well together, but it's not magic, basically, is what I'm trying to say, is that the context of sport needs to be intentionally structured, whether that's in the planning phase and the delivery phase, so that these positive outcomes can emerge. So it's not an automatic process. It's something that needs to be intentionally structured by programmers prior to delivery. So who is this report for? The report was designed for youth program stakeholders and other stakeholders that are kind of developing, designing, and delivering sport programming. But I think whoever's on the webinar today, I think we really speak to that third bullet, is maybe programs that are thinking about developing or integrating physical activity or sport into existing programming, or ones that maybe not necessarily sport or physical activity is at the root of their programming. So hopefully you'll be able to take some of these lessons that have and the strategies that we talk about and apply it to even non-sport sport programming contexts. So the main purpose of the report was to understand different frameworks and best practices that could be used to structure the youth sport environment so that youth can develop life skills. And then we also wanted to offer a lot of strategies, so a lot of take-homes. We wanted to make this report very applied and tangible for programmers and stakeholders, so really learning about how to best structure the youth sport context to foster psychosocial development and youth well-being. So I'm just going to touch on, these are 5 of kind of our main strategies that and main take-homes about fostering PYD within sport and physical activity programs. So these 5 strategies include having an intentional program structure, fostering positive relationships with youth, encouraging youth voice and engagement, intentionally teaching life skills, and then leveraging the power of both reflection and evaluation. So just for the sake of time, I will just touch on 2 of these strategies, but I think what's important to kind of wrap our head around is that a lot of these strategies are intertwined and play a role and overlap within each other. So I'll touch on program structure first, and you'll see within program structure there's overlap with youth voice and engagement, there's opportunities for teaching life skills, and even reflection. So there is a lot of overlap between these strategies. So within the report, we touch on a variety of different program structures and provide examples of specific structures that have been identified within the literature, whether it's models or frameworks that have been used in order to design or develop your youth sport program. And again, these take on a very intentional approach. So whether it's through teaching life skills or through the progression of how they structure one particular session, and then also working through an entire program. So for example, I'm going to quickly touch on the teaching personal and social responsibility model, which is a very well-known and well-established model that has been developed for at-risk youth within, it was initially developed in the United States, but has been applied all over the world, particularly within after-school youth sport and physical activity programs, and also physical education. So within this model, they kind of break down a program session into 4 main components. So they have this relational time, which is where potentially you could have an icebreaker activity, check in with the youth, and have opportunities to develop that positive relationships with youth, and then youth can also develop positive relationships with each other. The next part of that is an awareness talk, which is where you would pick a life skill of the day or something like that that is non-sport related, but you're tying it in, bringing it into sport. So for example, say you're picking the skill of teamwork or communication, you're talking about that skill, why that skill is important, and then in the next section, which is your physical activity or sport section, that is where you would also draw those connections. So say our life skill is teamwork. You're going to make sure that you're bringing up that life skill within the sport or physical activity component. And then finally, you wrap up with a debrief, a group discussion at the end. And within this, this is where you can talk about debrief not only what went well in the session in terms of sport and physical activity, but also the life skill as well. And within that group discussion piece, I think it's important to bring up that that's also where you can encourage youth leadership or youth empowerment, that you're asking youth for their input, or depending on the type of program that you offer, maybe it's not a specific sport or physical activity program, but maybe it's more of a drop-in, or youth can maybe select the sport or physical activity that they were involved in or that they want to participate in. So you can ask them maybe, okay, for the next month, what are some sports or physical activities that you want to engage in? Those sorts of things. I'll really allow for youth empowerment and youth voice to be heard. Okay, so then moving on to another one of our strategies, which is intentionally teaching life skills. So this was a program structure that we kind of developed through partnership with Golf Canada. And what we did is we worked with Golf Canada they gave us their existing curriculum in terms of all of their all of their sport and physical skill development in terms of putting and chipping, and we basically worked with them, picked various life skills that really aligned well with what they were working on, and then integrated life skills into their existing programming curriculum. So this is kind of the framework that we used. So what we wanted to do is each day you pick one life skill that aligns well with that sport or physical activity or that specific skill that you're touching on. So we kind of called that having a life skill of the day. So this is just one example of how you can intentionally incorporate life skills into your youth programming. So after that, you would go to introducing the skill at the beginning of the session. So you pick your life skill of the day, and then maybe you ask the youth, okay, what does this skill mean to you? How would you define this skill? And also, how is this skill important within the sport or physical activity context? So, okay, we're playing basketball today. So how does communication align with basketball? Or how can you use communication? Why is it important to use within a basketball setting? And again, that allows for youth voice and bringing in that importance of just getting also a starting point for where the youth are at. Next, you can integrate the skill throughout the session. So now that they have an understanding and they know what skill that they're focusing on in addition to the sport and physical activity, you also have that opportunity to reinforce that skill, that life skill, throughout the session. So both through the sport and physical activity components, you can do this through teachable moments. So teachable moments are those opportunities where maybe a youth is struggling to putt or hit a free throw, and you see this as an opportunity to jump in and talk about emotional regulation or something like that. So just kind of capturing those moments that you see as being pertinent, that you can either stop the group or stop an individual and kind of capitalize on that. Additionally, you can use different life skill activities. So kind of like more of those cooperative games where it's not necessarily sports specific, but you're really hammering home the message of this is the life skill that we're working on. And yeah, those are kind of fun, and we integrate those in a lot. Making sure that you're connecting the life skill to sport so that they are able to draw those connections. And not only did you talk about that at the beginning, but now they're actually seeing it in practice. And then having those youth provide opportunities so that the youth can practice those life skills throughout the session. And then last but not least is that debrief. So just like in the TPSR model that I just talked about, having that debrief, that wrap up, allowing for youth voice, and talking about, okay, what went well, what didn't go well today, what did we learn today, have a recap of the life skill and your sports skill, and then also, okay, now that we've learned this skill, where else would this skill be useful? Okay, how could you use that at home? How could you use that with your friends? How could you use that at school? And just have them provide opportunities for drawing these connections. And if youth are able to draw those connections, it might they might be more able to internalize it and be able to make those links. We can't assume as programmers that these links are automatic and they're just going to make draw these connections on their own. So helping them to make those connections has been seen in the academic literature as being very useful. So I think that is it for me. I will open it up for questions after Bridgette speaks. Bridgette's here from MLSE LaunchPad, and yeah, I'm very excited. They just had their ribbon cutting ceremony last week, so I'm excited to hear all of what they have to say.
Awesome. Hi. Hi guys, thanks so much to YouthREX for allowing me to participate today. I'm really excited to share some of the framework of MLSE LaunchPad. You know, as mentioned, we just kind of had our grand unveil last week, and we actually started beginning programming in February, in the middle of February. So we're a busy time here. You can see the space behind me. But I'm excited to talk about the space. So I'm Bridgette Estrela. I've been with the foundation for over 6 years, and I was actually the very first employee of MLSE LaunchPad, which I'm incredibly proud of. You'll kind of hear me in the presentation kind of flip back and forth between MLSE Foundation and MLSE LaunchPad. You know, I would say because MLSE Foundation was the steward of this initiative, so it began with MLSE Foundation, and they're also the primary funder of MLSE LaunchPad. Since then, MLSE LaunchPad it has become its own separate entity, but there's still a lot of fluidity and between the two organizations. So what is MLSE LaunchPad? So MLSE LaunchPad is a 42,000 square foot facility in Toronto, and here in Toronto in the Moss Park community. We're right on the corner of Jarvis and Dundas. We are on the first floor of a of a Toronto community housing building. If you could probably walk by the building 1,000 times and never even notice the space. Essentially, it was intended to be a roller skating rink. It was built over 20 years ago, and it's sat empty ever since. They literally poured the concrete and shut the doors. You know, some time ago, our team went and took a look at the space and realized this was a great opportunity for us to occupy this space and develop and lead our own programming. Next slide. Oh, we seem to be going backwards.
Sorry, everyone. Let me try to fix this.
Perfect, okay. Right here. So we have a number of different spaces within the facility. It's a very early mock-up. I should have shared the completed photos, but we have what we call the atrium. It's a large, flexible programming space. You know, can operate as a lounge or a homework club or facilitate training, that sort of thing. We have 3 multi-sport courts, so 2 hardwood court and 1 rubber sport court. So it's really an opportunity, and we say like our courts are our classrooms and our classrooms are our courts. So it's a multifunctional space. We have what we call a life skills zone. Essentially, it's 3 classrooms located in the facility, which will operate a lot of our Ready for School and Ready for Work programming, which you'll hear me talk about later. We have a commercial kitchen in the space. Our intent is not to, become a restaurant or, any sort of like social enterprise here, but really will be tied to our vocational training and also support good nutrition within the space. So we'll have that, and the last space is we have our really cool rock climbing wall. I'm absolutely terrified of it. I haven't got my training yet, but I should within the next couple of days. But really exciting opportunity to have something like that, especially in the downtown core for the youth that we're serving. Next slide. Awesome. So Toronto's youth are facing barriers and are being left behind. They're missing the full support they need to be happy, healthy, and thrive in school and prepare for work. It's a pretty poignant statement. If you had the opportunity to read the report, which I hope you did, you know that we're at the lowest levels of sport participation, and mostly for those who are facing barriers. As a prime MLSE Foundation understood this as a primary, sport for funding sport and sport opportunities for youth, and we realized that we really wanted to take an initiative to begin our own programming to help support this cause a little bit further. So, why MLSE LaunchPad? Thank you. MLSE LaunchPad MLSE Foundation has been empowering youth since 2009, and we've learned that the use of sport and physical activity is a powerful tool to engage youth. During our research, the study showed that the use of sport and in combination with other social programming enhances overall effectiveness of both interventions. And we wanted to promote quality sport and physical activity programming that promotes skill acquisition, teaches resiliency, and promotes being active for life. Our focus here is really on achieving sustainable, wide-ranging social outcomes for youth facing barriers through sport for development methodologies. Hopefully some of you know, but Sport for Development is a specific methodology supported by extensive research that suggests that the intentional use of sport and physical activity can build healthy communities and help people reach their full potential. So, next slide. Our goals of MLSE LaunchPad was really we developed some goals for this space, and some of these I'll touch on more in depth later on in the chat. But our goals were to provide young people with access to a safe, inclusive program delivery space, to lead training in sport for development methodologies and best practices in an urban setting. So, sport for development typically overseas, or sometimes we'll see it in the UK. But we really wanted to provide it here in an urban setting and located in Toronto. Some of our other goals were provide services that are focused on and promote positive youth development, provide training, capacity building, and coaching certification to partner organizations, offer professional development and program delivery, and share current research, and foster a collaborative culture to encourage knowledge sharing and mobilization. Next slide. This is our intended impact statement. We are really proud of this. So our team went through a strategic clarity process. It was really condensed because of our construction timeline. So we basically announced that we were taking over the space and put shovel in ground in February with a promise to open in January of 2017. So everything was really condensed. So we went through a very condensed strategic clarity session. I should note that it was only condensed in the time and not the actual process or amount of work that it was. This 3-year change or logic model was so key for our team. It allowed all of our team to be on the same page when we're making and the guiding force behind a lot of our decisions in a programmatic framework or operationally how we run the space. So if you have an opportunity to do anything like this, I would recommend it greatly. So you can see this with our intended impact statement. This is the change that we're hoping to make for youth in Toronto. And we can go to the next slide and I'll go through it a little bit further. Great. So you can see that this is our plan here, and it's quite extensive. So we can see on the left-hand side that we have a number of resources that we will provide as part of MLSE LaunchPad. So counseling, service, nutrition programs, child and youth workers, academic supports, health skills professionals, and technologies. Now these are, we have to keep thinking that MLSE LaunchPad, our idea is sport is at the core. So sport is at the core of everything that we do here. You know, especially being a sport facility. So you can see you have the who, the how, and the what of what we're serving. So who for the youth 6 to 12 during, you know, extensive research and focus groups that we understood that during that age group doesn't really travel much. So, you know, predominantly 20% of who we serve out of the facility is 6 to 12, and it's more so a localized outreach. So serving the local community more here. Our focus is really on getting youth engaged in sport during this age. You know, the 6 to 12, getting a love for sport and physical literacy and physical movement. You know, you can see within our outcomes there, and kind of graduating them to the 12 to 18. Which is more broad-based. We understand through our research that youth will travel more during this age range. And then we have sport programs and sport plus programs. So interesting concept is a sport plus program. So sport and, you know, a sport for development program. So using sport and mentorship, let's say, to combat problems with education. We hope to, during this, you know, some of our outcomes here are increased academic engagement, and increased healthy behaviors. And then kind of our last kind of age group here is 18 to 29, and it's GTA wide because, you know, youth will travel further during that age group, and it's called a plus sport program. So really the focus here is on positive youth development plus adding a sport program. So, and it couldn't be sport in the traditional sense. It might be physical literacy or health and wellness, mindfulness, that sort of thing, but it's at a smaller range. So whereas the Sport Plus program that's almost at 50-50%, and the Plus Sport program is, we're offering sport as a smaller percentage of that. For our youth development partners, and you'll hear me talk more about those, you know, we offer sport expertise and programming space, measurement and evaluation, and I'll go into further of that. So we can go to the next slide. Awesome. So there's really kind of three key factors to our space and how we built our programmatic framework. And the first really is collaboration, and the idea that, you know, we're all kind of vying for, you know, as charitable organizations, we're all kind of vying for the same dollars in the space. And, you know, having a background in the arts, you know, I understood that from the art sector, it's like, okay, we're all sharing the same wallet, so, you know, you find the wall, you bring the kids, I'll buy the paint, and together we'll do a beautiful mural, and kind of bringing that methodology into a sports sector. You know, predominantly we understood from the background as the MLSE Foundation that we had a lot of organizations that didn't have a background in sport, and we're adding sport components to their programs as a way to retain the youth they already had, to engage new youth into the program. And we really see that they didn't have the capacity to deliver the sport program, and they were stretching themselves really thin. So the idea with LaunchPad is that, you know, we weren't going to recreate the wheel. We don't have a background in positive youth development programming, so that we're going to partner with the organizations that have a long-standing history of delivering this type of programming, and we're going to, you know, kind of create this hybrid program where we're co-writing curriculum together, and each organization writing to their strengths. So you know, this is how collaboration is at the core of what we're doing here. We'll also commit to having capacity training, so it's great to kind of have these hybrid programs here out of MLSE LaunchPad, but if these organizations are to move on or you know, to take their program elsewhere, how are we providing sport capacity training to allow them to deliver quality sport programming? The second is measurement. So I should mention that we actually met with over 90 organizations as we were kind of writing the framework and doing the research for MLSE LaunchPad. Some of these were potential partner organizations, so the organizations that we thought we would partner with in the future, and some were resource organizations. And some were integrated service delivery organizations, or, some of you might have heard of community hubs, which is kind of a little bit like how we modeled MLSE LaunchPad, but with sport at the core. One of the biggest learnings for us was really the need for a shared measurement system and a backbone organization to kind of take that on. So someone to turn on the lights and keep the floors clean, but also to kind of work on the shared measurement system. You can see from this, we are building a purpose-built technology platform. So we actually will have our own platform here in which our partner organizations can log in and support our research and evaluation that's happening out of the space, and then we can share it with the broader community. And we're more than just sports. I think very early on when we were talking about Launchpad, we had some confusion that we were a community center, a gym, and we're more than just a gym. We wanted to be very intentional with the outcomes that we hope to have in the space. So because of that, we kind of built a programming strategy that was centered around four pillars. So healthy body, healthy mind, ready for school, ready for work. Can I get the next slide? Yeah, so did we miss one? Is there one before that? Nope, perfect. Okay. So our program strategies are built up around the Stepping Up framework, which supports the positive development of Ontario youth ages 12 to 25. The framework outlines a common vision and guiding principles. There are 7 key themes that have been developed to guide the work that all of our organizations are doing around positive youth development. It's strong support of friends and family, diversity, inclusion, safety, education, employment, health and wellness, civic engagement, and youth leadership. Coordinated youth and friendly communities. So MLSE LaunchPad is not going to, though we support all of those key themes, we're not going to intentionally address all of them. We are going to intentionally address 3 of the 7, which are, healthy body, healthy mind, education, and employment. So we kind of built our framework around that. So for healthy body, this is our healthy body pillar is really an opportunity for MLSE LaunchPad to develop its sports programs, to get youth engaged in sport for sport's sake, physical activity. It's centered off of active for life kind of methodologies that we're building here. We know that marginalized groups such as newcomers and Indigenous youth are more likely to face barriers than their peers when it comes to good health, access to quality sport experience, and opportunities to participate in recreation is a key determinant in addressing these issues. Some of our program focus here is promoting healthy choices through our nutrition programs, understanding the importance of participating in regular physical activity, and then establishing a baseline of physically literate youth, really important for us. Our healthy mind pillar, you might think, okay, this is a little bit weird to be addressing health, a healthy mind in a sport program. We believe that adolescence is a time of increased vulnerability to triggers associated with mental health issues. But one of the major things is that we know that youth won't necessarily receive support services in the buildings that they're offered because of the stigma associated with that. So MLSE LaunchPad offers those support services in-house to reduce stigma behind it. And so we're looking at that, and we're promoting positive peer-to-peer interactions. Ready for school, this is, when we talk about Sport Plus, this is where we'll look at partnering with the community organizations that have a long-standing history in doing kind of these mentorship and educational attainment programs. And ready for work, which is sport for employability. I talked about it earlier in our framework, was really an opportunity to engage with program partners that are delivering employment programs. We'll kind of add a wellness component onto it as a way that to mimic the curriculum that's happening for employment training. So, whether that's leadership, confidence building, also health and wellness. These are big proponents of going into the workplace. We have a lot of employers that are spending a lot of money on health and wellness. So we're giving this youth the skills that they need to enter the workplace with that already. So we can go to the next slide. So you can see some of our program partners here in this is what we talked about earlier. We can go to the next slide. So one of the key things I want you to take away from this presentation, and sorry I had to rush through it, there is so much to talk about. I encourage you to go to MLSE LaunchPad.org for a little bit more information, or you can feel free to ask me any questions, but as collaboration, so working with organizations that, whether you're a sport organization to collaborate with a youth development organization or vice versa, is really asset mapping, looking around your community. Is there anybody else that's doing this type of programming that you can work with? And then incorporating the youth voice. So we did a number of focus groups. We also have a youth advisory committee. I'm sorry I didn't get to touch on that too much, but it is a key, it is at the cornerstone of everything we're developing here at LaunchPad. I'm happy to take some questions now.
Okay, thanks. Thanks so much, Bridgette. I'm wondering if anyone would like to ask any questions about the MLSE model or research framework before we move on to the next presentations. So your presentation was very thorough, and right now there are no questions for you. So I'll ask people if a question comes up just to hold it to the end. And now I'm going to invite Meaghan Marton to come and share about Motivate Canada.
Hi everybody, I'm really excited to be on the webinar today. This is actually my first one, so I'm a little bit nervous but really excited. Thank you for having me on, and I'm really honored. So today I'm going to be talking about my position in Motivate Canada, and for a lot of people Motivate Canada is probably unfamiliar to you, so I'm just going to give you a brief about what it is. Motivate Canada is a national nonprofit organization that brings young Canadians together through sport and physical activity to promote social change in our communities and across the country. Next slide. So we are all about motivating Canada's youth, just as our title says, Motivate Canada. I am a facilitator with two programs for Motivate Canada, Activate and the Female Physical Literacy Program. So I first got involved with Motivate Canada, as was mentioned prior, in 2014 with the Physical Literacy Program, and then I attended the Activate program, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit, as a delegate. So originally I was selected as a participant, and then later moved on to becoming a volunteer and a lead facilitator within the Activate program. Next slide, please. So as I just mentioned, I'm the lead facilitator for the Activate Youth Leadership Program and Forum. I have facilitated 4 leadership programs across the province, Leamington, just outside of where I'm from in Windsor, Atikokan, 2 hours north of Thunder Bay, Toronto, St. Catharines, and I'm actually headed up to Timmins this weekend to facilitate another forum. I facilitate workshops that are based around sport for development, which was just mentioned a little bit before from the Launchpad, physical literacy, healthy eating, and youth-driven development, as well as mental health. So we focus on a wide range of topics, but we bring everybody together that is all interested at the same level in sports and physical activity. Next slide. So Motivate Canada, one second, my computer just froze. Focuses on 4 main topics: civic engagement, social entrepreneurship, social inclusion, and leadership. So that is the 4 main pillars that help to foster youth development. Some of, one sec. Next slide, please. So some of our outcomes through our programming is an increased engagement in youth, increased self-confidence, increased self-worth, increased relationships, increased social competence, and also vocational competence. So we harness the power of positive role models, sports and physical activity, and community engagement principles. Motivate Canada is able to engage young people, build their confidence and sense of self-worth, increase their social and vocational competence, as I just mentioned. So our programs bring young people from across the country and across the province together, and we facilitate programming that helps the youth that are delegates themselves become more self-confident, build friendships and networks, and then we allow them to leave the forum afterwards and bring these newfound skills to their community and develop their own programs that's going to benefit youth in their community. So it's kind of like a ladder. So Motivate Canada is on the top. We have the youth delegates that come in to learn. So they directly benefit from Motivate Canada's programming. And then there's youth right at the bottom that actually benefit from the delegates' training. So the delegates go home to create their own programs. And then the youth that are in the communities are the ones that actually engage in the sports. Next slide, please. So Activate is a youth-driven leadership forum to motivate, inspire, and activate youth to make a difference in their communities. So a lot of people don't really think about sport as as something that actually promotes social change. We kind of just think of that as something to be active, something to keep us healthy. But sport is actually something that can help change our communities because it builds communities and it builds those bridges and barriers amongst youth. So I also work at the YMCA in Windsor, and I work with newcomer youth. So I work with newcomers that have barriers with language. And when you put a soccer ball or a basketball amongst a group of people that can't communicate with language, they already know how to play together with a basketball or a soccer ball. So sport bridges barriers amongst youth. And our Activate leadership forums help facilitate and instill skills in our delegates to bring that back to their communities. So our workshops focus on skill development and understanding how sports and physical activity can make a difference for youth in their communities. All our workshops are developed and planned by youth. So I'm only 23, and I facilitate workshops to youth between the ages of 16 and 23. So we're all learning together. We're not learning from somebody that we always would maybe see in a higher power than us. We're actually learning with our own peers, which helps delegates feel more connected to facilitators and more engaged. And then again, at the end of the forum, when delegates go back to their home, they're kind of encouraged to create their own AIA project, which is called an Activate in Action project, to help kids get more active. Next slide, please. So the reason why Activate works is because it builds a space and time for program participants to share their ideas. So a lot of times the youth will come in, they're relatively nervous, they don't really want to share the ideas, but we give them time and we create something that's fun and engaging and also safe, which allows them to open up. So by the end of the conference, all of the youth have talked about their ideas, they've gained new insights, and they've made new friends, and something they weren't expecting from the beginning of the forum. Additionally, it helps them build their confidence throughout the 3 to 4 days that they're there. They develop friendships, and because of the friendships they make and the confidence, it empowers them. And when they feel empowered, they're more likely to go back to their communities and do something that makes a difference. Next slide. So I'm just going to talk about my Activate in Action project. So this is some of the youth that were in my boxing program that I created that was mentioned in my bio. So because I attended Activate as a delegate, I came back to my community and wanted to do something that involved sport. And because I was already involved in a boxing club called Border City, I knew boxing was probably a good sport because it's not something that a lot of youth get to try out. I wanted to keep it at low cost because Windsor is known as a lower economic status city. So I wanted it to be very, very, very low cost, accessible, and friendly and fun. So I've had about 50 to 100 youth participate in the program since the initial start date, which was 2015 in October. And now it's been about a year and a little bit since then. I've seen youth of all ages, 6 to 17, boys and girls, and of all different skill levels, all come in to learn how to box. I'm not teaching them to become boxers. I'm teaching them how to use sport to empower themselves. I've had a few youth that have come in who have had anger management problems, who have had diagnosed ADHD, and their parents have told me that the boxing program has helped empower them to listen a little bit more in class and just learn how to address their anger. So the program itself has done so much for the youth. And again, the Activate program has done so much for me. So by being a part of Motivate Canada and Activate, I have felt empowered to make a difference in the lives of so many youth. So it's kind of like a tree. Motivate Canada is the root. I become the branch, and all of the youth that I empower are the leaves. And they continue to do so as they grow. Next slide, please. And what matters most about Activate and the programs that we create is that the youth have fun, they build friendships, they smile and they laugh and they feel connected. Being physically active is the goal, but everything else that comes along with them is actually what matters the most. So I'm going to pass along the conversation to Gabriela, who's going to talk more about the other part of Motivate Canada.
Thanks so much, Meaghan. This is Rebecca. I'm going to bring Gabby on here. We're a little bit behind time, so I just want to do a check-in and say that we're going to go till 11:10. I hope people can join us for 10 more minutes, just so that we have time to hear from everyone and also get in a couple of questions as well.
Okay, awesome. Good to go. So hi, everyone. My name's Gabby. I currently work with the University of Toronto Scarborough and have been involved with Motivate Canada since 2014, just like Meaghan. Both of us were a part of the first 15 female youth that were trained as female physical literacy facilitators. I'm super excited to be here today. I cannot believe there's 101 of you registered right now listening in, which is a little nerve-wracking, exciting, and a little weird because I'm just talking to my screen. So I'm going to go a little more in depth about Motivate Canada's what was formerly known as the Motivate Canada Female Physical Literacy Project, now known as the LEAF Project, which is Leading Educating Active Females, and talk about what the purpose of it was, how we trained youth in Ontario, what they went out and did, what they're going to do this time around, and then what my project is and what I've continued to do beyond what I anticipated it being. So if we could just go to the next slide, please. Perfect. So what is LEAF? So initially, Motivate Canada's project LEAF was built on the success of the 2014-2015 Physical Literacy for Females project, which was supported by the Ontario Sport and Recreation Communities Fund. So what happened was back in November 2014, 15 female youth were brought together in Marton, Ontario, and they were from all over Ontario. And we went through a 3-day training that really helped us build our leadership capacity. Training on building a program, on engaging youth, physical literacy training brought in by the Canadian Sport for Life Society, and really just driving that youth-driven development philosophy that Motivate Canada and LEAF is really built upon. So being able to give these female youth the confidence and capacity to go out there and build their own programs. So after we were trained, we were sent back to our own communities and were set to find community partners, partner organizations that would assist us in leading the programs. Very scary at first. Training was amazing and got you all excited, and then it was like you're set back out into the world and it's like, okay, go build this program. So we all went out and looked within our community to see who we could partner with and really came together to do some amazing projects. If we could go to the next slide, I will talk to you and show you a little more of them. So in 2014 and 2015, we were everywhere. We had youth that were in Ontario, Bruce Mines, Windsor, York Region, Bracebridge, Renfrew County, and there's a few more that I unfortunately didn't get to list here. And we did everything and anything related to physical activity. And this was the great part about it is both LEAF and the Motivate Canada Female Physical Literacy Project, at the core of it had physical literacy, so really just teaching the female youth in our communities about what physical literacy was and, trying to make them more physically literate. But it went so much more beyond that. If you just look at the photos, we accomplished so much. The 15 of us, we had a color run, we did boxing, there was yoga by the water, a school lunch program. My program managed to go get a group of girls to do a 6-kilometer mud run. It was just probably one of the most amazing things to see. And then this time around, what's really exciting is that we actually have 10 youth this time around, and we are focusing more on getting Indigenous female youth involved and getting them to be more physically literate. So 2 of our youth are from Indigenous communities. They're from Muskrat Dam and Six Nations. So this time around, I was fortunate enough to actually be able to help facilitate the training session with the 10 youth, and this time we did it in downtown Toronto. And it was very similar to the first one. We talked about past projects this time, which was nice because we got to give them an example of kind of the different things that they can do. Just being able to see these youth and giving them the confidence and the opportunity to go out there and do something beyond what they ever thought they could have done is incredible. But what I think is the most rewarding thing is really going beyond just a physical literacy program. So if we could go to the next slide, I'll quickly touch base on what my program was. Perfect. So this is my baby. This is Keep On Moving TO was what I had called the program and what I continue to call it. So it started in July 2015. So initially with the Motivate Canada Female Physical Literacy Project, we were set out to complete an 8-week program. All our programs were very different. They varied in their length and what they did. But I had gone with an 8-week program, and my partner organization was the Boys and Girls Club of East Scarborough. I was very fortunate enough to have bumped into them at a committee that I had sat on and spoken about what I was going to do with Motivate Canada, and they said to me, "We'd love to bring you in. Can we talk more?" So we started talking. The first session that I walked into, I was nervous. I'd never, ever been into the Boys and Girls Club. I didn't know any of the girls there. I had brought my sister along with me, and we sat in a room with 4 girls who had no idea who I was. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the Toronto area, East Scarborough is a high-risk area with high-risk youth in it, and especially those that are from low-income families. And the Boys and Girls Club does everything that they can to support these youth. So walking in there, these girls just see a university student. This all happened in my undergrad, had no idea who I was. I just explained to them what the program was going to be, what it was going to look like, and kind of tried to get familiar with them. I talked to them about physical literacy and about movement and the benefits of it. And you could see that there is hesitation, and I think that's one of the biggest issues when it comes to female youth and physical activity is that there's so many barriers that the youth encounter, be it through what they see in the media, about not being good enough to be involved in sport and recreation, bunch of baloney, to be honest. So I wanted to really break down those barriers with them and get them to be physically active. And it was the most rewarding thing ever. We did a variety of sessions. I focused on the program being a multi-movement program rather than being a multi-sport. So we did anything and everything that involved movement. So we did do sport, of course. We did soccer, volleyball, flag football, frisbee, but we also did yoga. We did a ton of Zumba, which they loved. And then at the end of the program, I took them up to Albion Hills to complete a 6-kilometer obstacle course. Mud Hero, if anyone's ever done a mud race, they're my favorite thing to do. And it was very interesting because the girls were very hesitant because they had never completed a 6-kilometer course, let alone done a 3-kilometer course. And to do it in mud with obstacles was definitely a very interesting concept to bring to them. But I didn't take no for an answer, and it's not that I forced them to do anything. I said to them, you're only saying no because you've never done this before, and you don't think you can do it without trying it. And that's a huge barrier in sport and recreation and physical activity as well, is that a lot of individuals don't get involved because they don't believe they can do it because they've never been exposed to it. So for me, it was all about building relationship with these youth. And one of the craziest things that really stood out to me was the fact that these youth, by the 6th, 7th week, were saying my name, which is such a minor detail. But for the first few weeks, they didn't say my name. They just say hello, and I tell them what they were doing. We get together and we had fun. And this is really where this program went beyond just being a physical literacy movement program, but it was about building relationship. And I'm going to touch on that in a second. But on that last session when we went up to Albion Hills to do Mud Hero, the girl said to me, "Gabby, we never want to stop this program. Can we do this for the rest of our lives? Please, we love this so much." They built relationships amongst each other with myself, and they just said to me, they're like, "We can't stop this." And so it didn't stop. I was actually just there this past Thursday, and I'm going to be there this Thursday. And we've grown from a steady 6, 7 girls to now 15 girls. We're looking for additional opportunities for funding. We have so many plans in mind, and I can't wait to bring them to do, some of these girls to do their first mud run and bring some of the other girls to do their 3rd one, because we're going to make it an annual thing. But it was scary, and it was really scary, and it was hard. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that if we could just go to the next slide. So program planning, development, and resources. I mean, it's a scary thing to just kind of build something out of nowhere. Thankfully, Motivate Canada did provide us with a ton of resources and a lot of support, and having a partner organization was definitely very beneficial. But it was all about the connection. So I was very lucky in my undergrad. I worked with the Department of Athletics and Recreation as a part-time staff, and that's now my full-time job, which I'm very blessed to have. But my staff at the university were so phenomenal that anytime I needed to borrow any equipment, they'd lend it to me, no problem. The Boys and Girls Club, they provided me with free space and free equipment. We worked together. Anytime I needed transportation, the Boys and Girls Club covered it. And it was all about asking. And you know, these are really big asks sometimes, and it might not be as simple as you know, in some ways it was for me, but just asking questions and being able to relate to how it's going to be beneficial to the youth that you're getting involved with. Asking friends and family, you know, because of the youth I was working with, I really wanted to bring in individuals that I really trusted and that I knew would care for these girls. So I talked to my friends and families, got them involved. They built relationships with these girls, and you know, still to a weekly basis, when I show up, the girls ask me, where are your friends? Where's Sonia? Where's Val? Where's your sister? When are they coming? You know, when they see my friends and my family, they go out, they give them hugs. And, you know, not all programs are going to look like this, but this was just the way I built my program because I knew it was needed. This past December, because I had run out of funding, I was initially running the program with no budget and sometimes out of pocket. And you know, Christmas time, that's a big time. And I started a GoFundMe campaign and asked friends and family, and I raised over $700 and was able to get the girls, all the new girls and even the existing girls, new t-shirts that had the club name on them to show them that they were part of a team, that they belonged. You know, when I took the girls skating, I asked friends and family if I could borrow skates because where I was going didn't rent skates, and very easily I had, you know, individuals from all over, even friends that I hadn't talked to in a while, that were saying, no problem, you know, come pick these up. I can drop them off their skate, and, you know, always having that extra pair of hands. The nice thing as well is that there's so many resources online, you know, Active for Life, Sport for Life Society, Cause, and so much more. I ordered a ton from Active for Life of marketing material. Dairy Farmers Canada had a great bunch of resources that were completely free that you can give out to your youth as well, that talked about proper nutrition and hydration and related to sport and physical activity. But I think the best part of the program, and if we can go to the next slide, is that it went so much more beyond sport, recreation, and physical activity. I mean, I went from not knowing these 6 girls to essentially having 15 little sisters. I talked to them and taught them about fundamental skills because these girls, they were 14 to 16 years old, and you know, sometimes you believe that at that age that they know everything, or that, you know, they're more than capable than being knowledgeable on what their body can do, and they weren't. So it was a little scary to realize, you know, these girls aren't sure about how to run properly, or how to jump, or how to swing a bat, or how to kick a soccer ball. So teaching them that taught them so much more as well. I mean, it absolutely made them more physically literate. I talked to them about physical health and what physical activity could do. And the one thing I always do and still do is able talking about body image, because that's not what sport and physical activity and recreation is about. I mean, it's about moving, the benefits of moving, what you're able to do when you move, and, you know, all the other things that you can do. The mental health aspect as well, I think that's one that we don't discuss enough, is the benefits of being involved in sport, recreation, physical activity. You know, the endorphins that you get when you have a great sweat session, being able to go from I can't to I can. I mean, the Mud Hero example was a perfect one. These girls at the beginning told me, no way can I do these. And they completed every single obstacle. They cheered each other on, you know, and that goes and touches base into the social health. I mean, they built self-confidence, resiliency, leadership, the teamwork, the communication, so much more. And they essentially became family. And, you know, it's not always going to look like that, but I think that's very important. Is kind of, you know, the one thing that I always do is I hate seeing, you know, individuals that are from the top yelling to the bottom. Like, you got to get down at their level. So the one thing I always did is I always did whatever we were doing with them. I didn't just tell them how to do or how to play soccer or how to play badminton. I was right there with them. I was right there with them, making the same mistakes they were, and showing them that it's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to fall. It's just about getting back up. And it's, you know, building a safe, comfortable space for them to be themselves, for them not to worry about who's there, who's judging, anything like that. It's just about getting together, having fun, and moving together, and learning about the benefits of moving. And relationship building. I mean, that was a huge one. It's incredible what sport, recreation, and physical activity can do, and that's something that we really need to focus on. And these are things that you can do in your own organizations, and it doesn't have to be a 6-kilometer mud run. It could be a quick game of badminton, of tag, of hide and seek, you know, incorporating little different types of fundamental movements into these types of games. It makes a huge difference, and maybe they don't realize it right now, but you could be the one to change their lives. You could be their support system in one way or another, and you never know, they could also find their career goals through being involved in these types of programs, because that's one thing that sometimes isn't talked about enough as well, is that being involved in sport and recreation and physical activity can get you into your newfound career. I mean, you heard I did anthropology, linguistics, and English. I thought I was going to be a translator, and now I'm working in the sport and recreation field, and this is where I want to be. This is what I want to do, because you see the benefits that it has on the youth that you get involved with, and even on the people that are involved with the programs. So the next slide is my thank you slide. That is all for now. And if there's any questions for myself or Meaghan, please do let us know. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Gabriela and Meaghan. I'm going to bring Meaghan back now. And we have some questions that are directed specifically to you two, so let me just get them. Meaghan, I wonder if you could reply to this question, which is, what advice can you share with any youth who are trying to find a community partner?
Oh, that's definitely, it's not easy. I'm not going to say that it's just an easy thing to do, go out into community. I was fortunate to already be a part of a program, boxing club, that was actually in need of a boxing program for youth. So I just stepped in and was like, I can do that. I would say look for where you're already a part of. Are you a part of a gym? Are you a part of another group? Are you a part of another sports program that maybe they need something, you need a community partner, you can work together. So instead of just going to them and saying, like, I need you to be my community partner, you can ask them, what can I do for you? And perhaps that asking them what you can do for them can create more of a partnership than going and just looking for a community partner. They're more likely going to be a community organization that needs something, and they don't have the resources to have somebody facilitating a program, and you're the one that they need. So just be open to failure and be open to the no and rejection, but just know that you might have to change your approach, and just be prepared going into it, and also be flexible.
That's great advice, Meaghan. Thanks. Gabby, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's about presenting the opportunity that you're offering them. You know, you're not selling them something. You're not walking in there trying to sell them, you know, the life's answer to everything. The answer to life. Or it's about showing what you want to do and that it's beneficial. You know, you want to come in there to provide a service that is going to give back to the services that they have as well, and is going to partner with potentially what else they're doing. And it's not hard. It's about showing them, you know, I'm going to take care of this. Here's what I would need from you. And sometimes it's as simple as saying, can you save me a space every Thursday night, and can I borrow some balls? Like, it's not difficult. It's scary, but just don't be afraid to ask either, and don't be afraid to reach out. And it's okay to hear no's, because you'll hear a yes. It's just keep talking to people.
Thanks. Due to time, I'm just gonna send one last request to our wonderful participants to send in questions. We don't have that much more time. Actually, we're out of time. But I will direct one question here to Bridgette. Bridgette, someone is interested in the MLSE LaunchPad model, and for those of us who are out in the rest of Ontario, how can we benefit from either the model or the facility?
Yeah, so if, as I kind of mentioned in the model, it's a lot of information, but please go to MLSE LaunchPad.org to learn a little bit more. We do, as I said, we partner with community organizations that are operating in healthy body, healthy mind, ready for school, ready for work. If you kind of feel that you would be a good fit for this model, you can definitely go and look at our partnership inquiry document that's available on our website. I should note that MLSE LaunchPad is not a funding organization, so we won't fund you to operate out of this space. That you must be ready and scalable to operate your programming here, and in collaboration with us, should that partnership inquiry be successful. And then from other cities, how other cities can benefit. Really, we're trying to, take this model and grow it as much as we can and share it, not only with our resources in the league, so NBA, NHL, but also with other communities and agencies and cities and municipalities, and grow the framework and share as much knowledge as we can. We really hope that we're building something here that we can share with other communities to develop a model similar.
Thanks so much, and thank you again to Gabby and Meaghan. Thank you to everyone who joined us today. We hope that you can check out the report if you want to learn more about this. We have a lot of resources as well on the exchange.youthrex.com, which hosts this report and the resources. There's a research summary, there's a variety of fact sheets, and as well as going there if you want to return to them later. They're also included today here in the handout section, so you can download them today. And then, please check out Motivate Canada. They do amazing work. MLSE LaunchPad's model is very interesting. And I encourage us all, whether we're in youth development programs or sport programs, to think about those interconnections. So how can our sport programs integrate positive youth development, and how can our positive youth development programs integrate more sport and physical activity? And Corliss's report has some great tips for how we can bridge that gap.